Hello, everyone. Happy to see you, and I'm happy to be back. It has been quite a while, and many things have been happening in the meantime. And there were a couple of projects. There was summer, and I was really, really happy to spend some quality time with my family. And we're back for a couple of weeks already, and I'm back into projects. And finally, I found some slots to actually start streaming again and create some videos. And first of all, I would love to know if you can hear and see me. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense me talking. I'm using a new software, so therefore it would be really nice if you would just quickly type into the chat if it works. I can see that a few people are really already here. And hi everyone, hi Pavel, hi, what's that? Sorry if I pronounce your name wrong, Hyun, and 11 Studio Photography, hey. So I assume you can all hear me, and that's great. And today I would love to go through a beauty image with you, and starting from the raw conversion in Capture One. Actually, I want to have a little deep dive in Capture One, since there is a lot that you can actually do inside Capture One before jumping into Photoshop. So if you're not using Capture One yet, I encourage you to do so. It's not as hard as it seems when you open it for the first time. And you can actually download a free version that you can use for about a month. And that being said, I know that the new version is coming out in a couple of months, and that's going to be exciting. Some of you might know that I'm a Global Capture One ambassador. I'm collaborating really closely with these guys. It's a wonderful company, and they are having an astonishing product that is worth diving into. So that being said, we are today working on an image that my colleague and photographer Ava Pivot from Berlin has given me to work on. And it's a beauty image of a black-skinned model, which has some amazing makeup. And I want to show you the challenges that you can encounter working with darker skin, and how to deal with it. And before that, how was your summer? How was what were you doing? Did you have your vacations already? Are you into projects at the moment? And just let me know during the conversation, during the stream, what you've been up to. And if you have got any questions, you can drop them into the chat. And every now and then I'll take a look, and I will answer them as best as I can. And all right, so I hope you're all set. You have a relaxed chair or whatever to actually follow this, and we'll be jumping into the raw conversion very soon. Okay, and let me switch to the screen. I have to move this a bit. Oh, that's a bit big. Let me shrink this down a bit. It's not important to see me that big. Hey, Pavlek, I love that you had a great weeks at Oste, and it's nice. Oh, how to dodge and burn without going so far? Well, I think I can give you a few insight into that, but it's a matter of training, right? And you have to see when enough is enough. And what is a good idea is, when you finish dodging and burning, if you just take the opacity down of all your settings and bring them back in just as much as you need them. That's sad to hear, Lise. Hope you're doing all right, and I feel you. And my grandmother always said that there's there's sunshine after the rain, right? I know it sounds a bit cheesy, but that's actually right. And I've been there too, and I wish you a lot of strength. But now, let's get into this and find some motivation and inspiration here. And okay, so you see the beautiful image that Ava has given me to work on. And as you can see, it's also in a quite dark mood, dark light. And what we want to do is to find the perfect starting point to actually work in Photoshop and finish the piece. But there's a lot that you can do in Capture One. And today, that's why I pulled this out already here, I want to emphasize on working with layers. So if you've done that before, that's a great move. If you haven't, check out what you can do with it. It's very, 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 very powerful, and it enables you to be much more precise, have more control over luminance and colors, and you can be very subtle or very extreme. You can work on the color grade, and just wait and see. It's going to be cool. And yes, I can talk briefly about the Capture One layout. As you can see, I moved the thumbnails to the right. I think it's in the standard settings, it's on the bottom. And I want to have the picture as large as I can, so that's basically why it's on the right side. And I have the tools on the left side because, I don't know, well, it just is easier for me, but I think it doesn't have a specific reason. And I really like the quick menu. This is not here by default, so you can actually hold the control button and click here somewhere, and you can add a tool tab, which is called Quick, and there you can put everything that you work with the most. And I did that. This is basically everything I need, so I don't have to switch all the time. And I added another one. This is the favorites, and here I only have the style brushes. And the style brushes are very interesting because it enables you to actually select predefined tools that then create a new layer once you work with them. We'll get to that. Okay, so the most important things that I work with are the white balance, and sometimes you can check the base characteristics. So this is shot with a Nikon camera, and what you can do is you can use different settings that come with Nikon. And sometimes the Pro Standard is an interesting setting that you could use. It gives slightly more contrast, and you can try that, but for now I will leave it with the generic. And what the next thing that I love to use is, as I said, the white balance. We will work with exposure tab. We will work with the high dynamic range one. We definitely will work with curves. Curves is essential in my workflow because basically everything you do here in all these other sliders is somehow related with a curve. And you can do most of the things with curves actually in retouching. Of course, you don't have to, but just know that it's all related. And we will work with the color editor. We will work with the sharpening, and we will work with some grain, and as I said, with the layers, and of course with all the different elements that the color editor has, and with the color balance. I dragged it out. I will show you later why. And just to answer one question quickly, Alexander, I work with 2,000, what is that, 400 something pixels, so it's basically 2K, and that's also what I use for streaming. I hope the quality is good. I have a 27-inch monitor, and that's completely fine for me. I use an ISO CG, what is that, 27.9 or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. I would have to turn it around, but I can't see the images then. I'll check later. All right, let's get started. So the first thing that I want to do, especially with this image, is I want to play with the white balance. So as you can see, when we go to the blue side of things, cold side of things, it's turning very cold very quickly. And I want to balance out this skin tone. And let me zoom in a bit so that you can see it a little better. Oh, wait. One thing we do in the beginning, we will crop the image a bit. And because Ava and me, we agreed on having the finger out of the frame. And let's see. And we will maybe have it something like that. So balanced in the middle. We can confirm that so we don't have to take care of the rest of the image. This is a bit too warm. Let's go for starters. I like round numbers. I don't know why, but maybe someone can relate. Let's see. And I like, with darker skin tones, I like it when it goes a little bit to the greenish tint and take the red out of it a bit. Maybe -1. Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I always talk about, I love the moment when we open the image for the first time. And this one, I would like to set the base for a nice raw development. And there's one thing that is very important to point out. Nice nudge and Ava, thank you. I'm happy to see you here. So everyone, Ava is here too, and it's great to have you. And thank you again for this collaboration. And all right, so the first thought that I had was I would love to lighten it up a bit. I would love to balance the shadow tones and the highlights so that more details are visible, and that's an approach that I use a lot when working in raw development. And so it is very essential when you develop a raw file and send it to Photoshop or another program to do the retouching, that you have details and information in all tones. And that is what I think is sometimes overlooked, because if you don't do that in Capture One or in another raw conversion software, you can end up with closed shadows or blown out highlights, and there's no easy way to fix this in Photoshop. So it's better if you have a raw conversion that you can then darken or lighten later to an amount that is still okay. So I want to find a good base to work on, and that's more the commercial approach. So a neutral conversion, and then the details should be like balanced out, and you can work on the look and the grade later on. If you work on an editorial or on a collaboration with a photographer, as we are doing here now, well, you can do a little more, and you can push it already into the direction that you want to go, because you can be certain that there's possibly not a client or an agency involved that has got some ideas or that changes their mind. If that happens, you will have a hard time to degrade the image again, because you have done your retouching on top of it. So I suggest that you keep it neutral in a commercial job, and if it's a collaboration or an editorial job, or a job where you know that you have got the creative freedom, you can do whatever you feel like, and you can go as far as you want. And well, we'll get to that. And I see a look that is somehow working with the colors of the makeup. So I want to color grade it in the end with exactly those colors. And I can imagine that we push the shadows more into the pinkish reddish tones, and that we push the highlights and the mid-tones in the greenish. And we can complement that with another color harmony later on. And this will lead to interesting results. And well, it's my interpretation now, and it's not said that you have to do it as exactly like that. It's just when it comes to color grading, there are so many possibilities, and it should be a process that you enjoy. So yeah, I will go on with the color correction and with the raw conversion now. And no, I will possibly work on this image today and not the whole series, because it's too much for a live stream. But I can imagine like having a follow-up video and showing you how to work with a series of images and maintain a color grade and a look. Maybe that's something we can do. All right, let's move on. And I think exposure-wise, we can light it up just a touch to see a bit more. Maybe 2.5. If you hold the Option key and click this button, you can just reset the one setting that you just did. If we zoom in, we can see that we have got some contrast in the skin pores, and therefore some areas that if we over sharpen them and if we do too much contrast work now, we will have some issues with that later on in the Photoshop part. So I like to take down the contrast a bit, because we can bring it back later, and therefore let me zoom in a bit. Maybe like so. It just softens the skin slightly, and it gives smoother transitions, and this is because of the light situation that we have here now. We can introduce the contrast back when things are retouched, and we don't introduce too much distractions into the skin when converting it a bit with a bit less contrast. I want to take down the saturation a bit, just a bit, maybe like this. So this is what we end up here. And the next thing I want to do is work with the HDR. And this is actually a really powerful tool, especially in a situation like this, because we can open the shadows with this, maybe push it to, I don't know, 15, and we can also open the blacks a bit, just a very dark tones will be open a bit. Let's see, 5 maybe. Yeah. I'm just trying to ballpark it a bit so that we have got that conversion that I just talked about. And now that I took out some of the contrast here, I might bring a little more contrast in the bright tones, just a bit. Let's see what it does. I can imagine like we don't put it to the darker side, but we can create a bit more contrast so that the colors are a little more vibrant. Like so. And the next thing I want to do is work with the color. let's see if we do it here. No, we are still working on the background layer. So everything that I want to have a little bit more control of will be worked on an extra layer. But let's move one step at a time. Okay, the color. We have the basic, we have the advanced, and we have the skin tone tab. What we can see already, I don't know if you can see that, but there are some color shifts, which is completely normal in the skin, and some saturation issues that we could work on when we are in this stage or when we are in Photoshop, but I am positive that we will do it here. So basically in every image, this part below the eyes is mostly a little less saturated than the rest of the skin. Same goes for the area around the lips and the neck, and therefore we can adjust it and balance it out a little more to have a more evened out image to start with. Okay. I want to make use of the color picker, and I don't know if you have ever if you have ever worked with that. So basically, you can activate this, and you can click on the skin tones, and it will choose the tones. Well, this time I clicked red already, so that's why it is chosen. What we can do now is you hold, click and hold, and then you can move. See, you can move the hue and you can move the saturation. And what I want to do is to shift the hue, let's see, of the red to, let's see, where we go. Maybe a bit to the yellow side. What looks better? I will push it a bit to the right, and I want to also take the saturation and work with it a bit. Let's see what it does. So if I increase the saturation, it has a very strong effect. I don't want to do that. I just want to balance it out a tiny bit. And I want to also enhance the color of the makeup. Therefore, I will click here. It jumps to the pink. And let's see if we can isolate that and increase the saturation a bit without the skin to be affected too much. You can see what it does, right? It would also be an option to do that on an extra layer, but I guess we don't introduce any color shifts to the skin right now, so we can do that and do the same here. Just increase the saturation a bit. It's very subtle, but it helps to have a good starting point. All right. The next thing is that I want to take out the sharpening. I know there's a standard setting, and once you take out the sharpening, you can then have the most amount. What is that? What did it just move back here? Okay. When you take out the sharpening and you bring this to Photoshop, there's no extra contrast introduced to the skin, and that leads to less irritations in the skin. And now this would be, contrast-wise, in my eyes, a good starting point, because we can bring back all contrast selectively so that we don't over-sharpen some areas. Okay, now it's time to actually make use of the style brushes. So what we did so far, as you can see here, is we lightened it up and we found a base to start working. And once you go to the style brushes, you have the chance to check for the color style brushes, for, as you can see here, some of those that are predefined, and you have dodge and burn options. So, and that is what I want to do. I want to have some contouring. I want to introduce some contouring, and that's done by, for example, taking the burn one. And you can set the brush settings. I don't want to have auto mask because then it would calculate based on my brush stroke. I want to take down the opacity to 10% and I want to increase the flow to 100. That's my way of dodging and burning. And I want to bring a little bit more depth into the image by very gently brushing over the darker areas, or the ones that I want to be a little darker. And you can always go back with Apple Command Z. I want to darken the eyebrows a bit here. Make these a bit darker. These. And you can check what you did with this checkbox. And then you have the chance to actually work with the opacity. So if you went too far, you have a chance to balance this out. And this is giving you a lot of control. Let's do the exact same thing with the dodge one. Again, holding control, clicking on the image, and you can then set those. And I want to lighten this part a bit in here over the eye. A bit on the forehead and on the chin. So I want to work on the light fall off and start balancing out some of these areas already. And once you're working on dodging and burning, you can also start and actually work on some of those areas that you would have to work on in a later stage as well, because you have got more information here instead of working in the Photoshop file that has reduced tones due to not being a RAW anymore. But here I would love to take down the opacity a little bit more, just not to have the very big impact with the brush stroke. I want to build the effect. And you can start dodging and burning already in Capture One. And the benefit is that it most of the time doesn't introduce the same kind of saturation issues that you might have when doing that in Photoshop. But that's a personal phenomena. I don't know if you can relate, but you can give it a try and let me know what you think. Okay, so let's see what we did here. And we can always dial that back, okay, with the opacity slider. What I'm doing now is working on transitions between dark and light tones, and I want to even it out to have a good base to start working on the pixels, which is what we're not doing right now. We will only work with the light and shadow information. And let's see. Oh, it's a bit laggy. Let's see if it's too much. I guess I will bring that down to somewhere in the 70, 80-ish. Okay. Yes, like that. It's a little more even. And I want to now increase the saturation a bit below the eyes. And let's see how this works and what it does. I will decrease the opacity again. And bring in some saturation here. Oh, that's too much. Okay, if you want to delete that, you can hold, because if you push the M button, you can see the mask. And if you just hold Control and hover over that and click here, you can clear the mask. And I want to do that again with the lower opacity. And if that's too much, again, we can, I have a feeling that this gets too red below the eye. Let's take it off. Here's some darker area. Don't know if you can see that. All right. And I saw some part below her lip. Just want to work on that a bit. Let's see. Just to bring in some more tones. Okay. And now I can see that the neck and the chest part here and the collarbones are a bit too grayish dark. And let me bring in some saturation here as well. Before we head into the next stage of the raw conversion, I want to work on that, and therefore I will create a new layer. We'll call it neck, and I will push the M button and draw a mask. I will roughly paint this around the neck. And when you have a mask like that, you can then go in here and you can say fill mask, and it will automatically fill the rest. And now we can just make this edge a bit more smooth and take this off. It doesn't have to be super precise. We can still check if it needs some more enhancement. I guess it will be all right. Let's see. Pushing M, you can deactivate the mask view. We can go back to the curve. And now I want to lighten the darker part a bit. And I want to give it a little bit more red and a little bit more yellow to match the upper part. It's a bit too strong now. We can adjust that. And now I want to, there's some halo. I want to take it off here. Okay. I think that works pretty well. And the next thing that we could do is, well, there's two ways to approach this now. This would be the neutral conversion with a few color enhancements and some color adjustments, and also balancing out luminance. And of course we could do the grading now on an extra layer, and I want to show you how that can be done, because we have a workaround. We can develop everything, but the color grade, we can leave it on a layer and deactivate it, and we could introduce the grade later on. When we finished working with the image in Photoshop, we can then actually save it as a TIFF file and send it back to Capture One, load it, and introduce the color grade. That's a workaround if you want to do the grading in Capture One, and you want to have the flexibility to actually have a neutral conversion to start retouching. And okay, so I just want to quickly show you how this is done. Let's do it like this so that it is a bit more obvious. This is for the grade. We will fill the mask, and then you can see that the whole image is filled. And what we can do now is, for example, work on the shadows, highlights, and midtones. And therefore I have opened the color balance tool 3 times and just attached it to each other. So this gives me the chance to be more flexible when it comes to grading. And I can, as you can see, I can increase the size of those circles to have even more control. I guess this would be enough. So I said in the beginning, I want to push the shadows to the pinkish side. Let's just play with it, okay? It's not set into stone, but I want to just play with it and see what it looks like. The midtones to the opposite side, to the greenish one. And also the highlights. Let's see what it does. So it takes the color of the makeup and introduces the color scheme into the whole image, which can be nice. Of course, it's personal preference, but I kind of like it. But I don't like what it does to the pink, and therefore we have to work on that mask. Okay, we have to erase the pink makeup from it. And I will quickly draw a mask. And check what it looks like without this color being affected by the grade. Okay, there was some area that I accidentally brushed away. It's a bit laggy, sorry. Sometimes it takes a little while. Yes, sometimes I use the magic brush, but not this time. It does make sense. It has a lot of power, and maybe it would have worked. I don't know. I could try. So again, typed something here. Great. Mask is now fixed. And we're not losing the color in the makeup. And I don't want to have the eyes affected either. This can be very loose. Okay. Because if we keep one neutral part in the image, it helps our eyes and brain to see it as a grade, not being completely shifting the whole image, but it gives us a neutral reference point, which is nice in gradings, I think. Okay. But I am not sure if I want to develop it like this now. I want to keep the flexibility to maybe do it later or play with the grade in Photoshop. Okay, so now we are at the stage that I would send the image over and where we could start retouching the image. Are there any questions to the Capture One part until now? So maybe we can answer those and then move to the next stage of the retouch. Just gonna wait if you guys have got a few questions. Otherwise, we will just jump into Photoshop. All right. So this is the before and after in Capture One with all those. I will go through those separately again. So this is what we did on the base layer. Then there was some touching and burning. We worked on the saturation where I still think it's a bit too much. So let's take this down to 50%. And we worked on the neck, and we have an optional grade. Okay. Sometimes I work with luminosity mask, but mostly due to having more control, I do the gradings in Photoshop, and then I use luminosity masks as well to tackle certain tone areas. But sure, it could be done in Capture One too, but this is something that I do in very little occasions. Sure. All right, let's jump into Photoshop then. I will export the image as a PSD file because I work with PSD files. I know you can do that in TIFFs, but then I would save it as a PSD file anyway. So this is why I most of the time work with 8-bit. That's enough for most of the jobs. If there's something with strong tonal variations or very strong colors, it could be done in 16-bit. It's a big discussion, and I found that most of the times, 90% of the jobs, 8-bit is more than enough. If there are some color shifts introduced or some banding, you can get rid of that with a few techniques. So there's no need to have these really large files. And just gonna export that, and we will jump over to Photoshop. Okay, so let's have a look at the image, what we want to do. So there are a few skin texture issues that I want to tackle. I think for the sake of this video and for demonstration, I will work on the most prominent ones. And if there's enough time, we can work on the whole image. But I guess you'll get where we are headed. So let's see. We will definitely work on those strong irritations here. We will work on that area that needs some fixing. We will also work on the edge of the makeup. This is a very important step because it is, as you can see here, it just needs some improvement and some color work, and also this line could be either taken out or we make it a very prominent line. Not sure yet. I think we probably just make it the two colors and we will get rid of that line. And yeah, we will work on the color, we work on the contrast, and I will show you a few grading techniques that could lead to some nice results. All right, the first thing is that I will create a new layer for the pixel work, and I will lock it. This has just the reason that I don't want it to move during the retouching process, because if it happens and I don't realize it and I continue working, that's not good. That's not good. Yes. To answer that question quickly, yeah, no. Usually I do this in Photoshop. It depends on the jobs you do, right? So if you're working on a key visual and just a one image, I think it's fair if you do that in a very detailed manner in Photoshop. If you work on an editorial, of course, you can start doing that in Capture One as well. But again, the thing is, why I love to do that in Photoshop is because I have more control over it. Sometimes you take something out that should stay in the image, like a permanent thing that some person has, and you maybe mistook it for a mole, and it was it wasn't a mole, it was a pimple, for example, and he took it out, and it's very important for that person or something like that. So I want to keep that flexibility. Okay, there's two approaches. Let me quickly shut down Capture One because I don't want it to be too laggy. What? Pending mask change? Oh, no problem. I want to work with the clone stamp on an empty layer and set it to current and below. This way it allows me to have all the changes on an extra layer that I can then take out. See if it's on a new layer, and we can deactivate this here and see that it's just here. And therefore I can mask it, I can take it off, I can increase and decrease the opacity. I have much more control over this. So we can do it a very detailed way, and you can see that I'm first taking care of the most obvious things. When you clone and heal, you just make sure that I just make sure that I tackle just the bad texture in explanation marks and don't work too much on the texture that is intact. Okay. Actually, I will create two masks for the makeup. so I will tackle the makeup a little later. I don't know why it's that laggy. Maybe I have to check some settings in the software. It's OBS. If someone has got some infos on that, I would appreciate that. It's the latest version, and sometimes some smart settings can help with these issues, right? Okay, I will switch to the healing brush and we'll work on these bigger areas. I don't want to have too soft edges, because then it introduces softness where I don't want it. Sometimes you can get rid of some luminance issues as well when working with the clone stamp or with the healing or spot healing brush. I just want to set a good base for a later dodge and burn session. But it depends, right? If it's necessary. Okay, the lip could be, I will reduce the opacity. That's something that I do very often when working with the clone stamp tool. Sometimes I just clone with 20-30% or something like that to be more subtle in the adjustment. And I switch a lot with my tools. So now I'm back at the healing brush. I just want to calm this area down a bit, and 50% is a good setting for the clone stamp tool here. I always work with a very tiny brush. If you saw my other videos, you know that I'm a fan of tiny brushes. Because it gives you just so much more control. But as you notice, of course, this is a very detailed approach. I understand that sometimes there is just no time to be that detailed on images, or maybe not just the budget. And then you have to find compromises, right? Because you can't always put in the full work if it's not like valued. Sometimes it's not necessary, and just be aware that I noticed throughout a ton of jobs that sometimes you would love to do more to an image, but the clients just don't want this kind of detailed approach, and then there's an option to find a compromise in a not as much intense approach, and that can also lead to nice results and gives you more time to concentrate on the most important tasks, and then gives you the freedom to work on other images or just do something else with your valuable time. Right now, I'm focusing on the most prominent areas. Maybe let's zoom out a bit so that we are not that detailed in. If we see the before and after, we can see that it's slowly getting there. Okay. Yes, Alexander, the stream will be available on my YouTube channel later. So don't worry, if you are missing something now, it will be there for you. I'm still thinking that I probably won't retouch the full image so that we can work on the most important things, because I think you know what happens in dodging and burning and in working with clone stamp and healing brush. Thanks, Rahul. Much appreciated. Love you being here. I want to take out this one. This could actually be a good opportunity here to use the other healing brush, the spot healing brush, because it's very powerful with those tiny details. You can just brush over it, and the new version came, I don't know, there was an updated algorithm in one of the latest Photoshop versions, and it is really nice to work with, especially with hair. You can just brush over it and it magically finds the right sources. Like for this area here, it is really good to work with this. You can easily brush over it and take care of those areas. It also works with long hair, by the way. It works with every hair. And if there's a change that is not soothing you, of course you can fix it. But it does a good job. Let's see if it also fixes this line. Maybe it's an approach, maybe not. Maybe I want to paint a mask there, just to show you why. Okay, let's find some hair here that needs to go away. And all those tiny criss-cross things, or these parts. And also the tiny veins in the eye, it works really well. Those tiny dots. This hair. I don't know about you, but I find myself going all over the image and working on different areas, coming back to an area that I have been working on before. It just, I don't know why that is. Maybe because I'm curious about the whole image, and it was the same in school, right? I couldn't sit still for a complete hour. I had to move. Maybe that's why. Okay, this is an area that can be treated in many ways. Let's go over a few methods that you can use to calm this area down a bit. So you can use the spot healing brush, as you see, but it changes the texture, right? And what I like to try is use the clone stamp tool with a lower setting, like 30% maybe, and go in a bit closer and start with a small brush and just sample an area that is close by and fill those distractions with pixel data. And sometimes it gives you really nice results. Let's see. And you can fix those areas very subtle. And just try to make a smoother transition from this light part to the darker part. And also this micro contrast between those pores here. I just don't want to introduce blurriness, and therefore I have to maybe sharpen that area later or introduce some noise. So there's many ways to actually do this. Finding a base like this can be helpful. You just have to know, sometimes it's a step in between. Let's try the healing brush. Yeah, you can D&B, sure. I will later. But these are very strong contrasts, and sometimes it's enough to do it like this. And if it's too much that I did later, I can use a mask to take it off. It also depends on how the image is going to be seen, the size and the print, and if you introduce grain and if not. So sometimes this is enough. Talking efficiency, because it can also lead, oops, wrong tool. It can also lead to much more work, to very detailed, to do the dodge and burn in a very detailed way. It depends. You could also do that with some kind of frequency separation. If it's done right, it is a very mighty tool. It can also lead to it can also get you in trouble, but I assume that you know these tools and you know how and when to use them. And I'm not against frequency separation by all means. I know from my own experience from many moons ago that it appears to be some kind of magic trick, and you can go overboard very fast, and you just have to be aware of that. Let's work on that eye a bit. And we can leave the rest for dodging and burning. Okay, now this makeup part here, I want to even that out a bit. The hardness for the clone stamp, I don't know what is I'm using 42%. Right now it was 42. I change it, you know. It's on the stylus of the Wacom board. Let's get 50% clone stamp. I don't want to take out this line completely. I just want to make it less important. I'm not decided yet what I want to do with it, so maybe a bit later. And yes, you're right, Hayes. It should depend. That's why I change it. Okay, switch back to the healing brush. Work on that texture. Oops, that wasn't the healing brush. If you work with very tiny brushes, this can give you nice results. By the way, where are you guys from? What's your time of day? Here it is like 5 in the evening. And I'm located in Düsseldorf, Germany. It would be nice to know where you are. I saw in the beginning that there was someone from Wuppertal, which is pretty close to Düsseldorf actually, for those who don't know. Mülheim, close to my old what's the word actually in English? Heimat. I was born in Oberhausen, which is in the Ruhr area, very close to Mülheim. Oh, nice. From all over the world. So, hope you're having a nice breakfast with me. And Vietnam, I guess, is a little later. Nice. Thank you guys for being here. It's great to have you here to show you what I do, and I appreciate you taking the time. Actually, I don't like this part too much here. That's something that we can tackle with Dodge and Burn, I guess. Do you know if there's any way that one can play music in streams? Let's say regular music, not some weird, I don't know, forever loops by some I don't know, what is that? These stream musics. You know what I mean? Well, then, I get asked a lot if I offer one-on-ones. Usually, it depends on what is needed and how much time I have. Sometimes I do, but not on a very regular basis. And it depends on the time and also what one needs. So I might do that a little more often, but I will announce if I do. Okay, this was too much. I'm going to take that down with the eraser, just with 30 to 20%. Okay, all right, so I guess that's it. For this one, no. This area is a bit, no, it's better. Okay, let's do a quick mask for the makeup so you can see that. Yeah, Pavel, sure, I can. I was just very spontaneous. I knew that I would have some time today, and I just made the decision to do it today. I set up the stream late in the evening yesterday, and I did some advertising today. So is Instagram the best way to reach you guys, to let you know that I'm about to do a stream? Or do you get noticed by YouTube when I put one? Okay, I will do the mask for the whole makeup. And then I will separate it later. So the idea is to give a little more precise edge to this and even out the areas that are a bit too, like here, standing out. Just and this one here. All right, so now we have the mask for the makeup in total. I want to save that one. Call it one. Oops. Makeup. Give it a mask, and I want to blur it. By 1.5 maybe, like this. Okay, and I want to have another group. This is the skin, and I want to invert that because I want to work from both sides to make it clean. And inside the makeup folder, I want to have two groups. One is called green, and the other one pink. And now I want to just very quickly draw the separation here, and you will see why in a second. So I can make this much more loose. and we can create that mask for the green one here, give it the same blur with command. I just typed command F for the same last filter I used, and then we can copy that over to pink and invert it, and then we have got the two masks. All right, what I can do now is create a retouch layer in both of them. Again, lock them, and in the pink one I can, with 100% opacity and a small brush, I can paint that edge or copy that edge. And if it is too harsh, we can soften the edge later. But having these masks helps a lot to create a result that is more neat. And you can work a lot faster when you have good masks. It's a very essential part of a workflow. And gives you so much more control over your image. So as a retoucher, I can assure you that when you get used to mask every important element in your image, of course it takes an initial amount of time, but in the long run, it helps you to save so much time and don't get into trouble that is caused by having sloppy masks or no masks at all. Okay, I want to decrease the opacity and go over these edges. I want to lighten it. No, not as much. 20%. Okay, now we have got this up here. We can work on the outer mask before going to the final adjustments of this. Now you can move in and fix it as you want. It's too sharp. We will work on the transition. Make sure that you don't leave traces when copying this. All right, just moving around this mask quickly. Let's go to 50% opacity. Work on that edge. Take some of the visibility of the hair. I want to have it a softer hardness now here for this covering up. Okay, now I want to soften the edge a bit more here. It's too sharp. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. 2, maybe, and the same here. That's better. Maybe more. Okay. All right. Now, just to give you an idea why I did that, there's a new one here now. Now things will fall together. And we can soften that edge later. Again, we can use the smudge tool or any other tool that helps you play with the mask. But you'll have a more clean line, and you can decide with a layer mask on the cloning layer here now if you took out too much. Again, I want to make sure that you get the most out of this without spending hours here. So I'll do it a bit more loose. This part here is more blurred, therefore we will have to blur that edge a bit more. Let's see. Another way would be to liquefy and to notch it under that mask. That's also a possibility. And it depends what you prefer, I guess. 30%. I want to just fix this. Is a nicer edge if the, yes, like this. Okay, and here. The only thing we have to avoid is that there are some traces. Otherwise, that should be all right. Okay, so now the main mask from both sides needs to be more blurred. Let's go and try. First with the Gaussian one. Let's give it a 3. And do the same for this one. That's more subtle and still much cleaner. So if we take a look at the before and after, see? That's one way to do this. In the end, we can still can you move your live image to the left, please? Pardon, what do you mean? Oh, did I have it to right here? Okay, understand. Okay, so that's a fair question why I don't use the feather. I like to do it manually. I don't know. I have a feeling that I have more control with this, and I can soften it to the amount that I want, and I can soften it in different degrees of sharpness, because as you see here, this is more blurred, and I could use the, oops, not the smudge tool, but the other one, the blur tool here now. Oh, this is too big. And it's, oh, it's slow. I hope it doesn't crash. Let's see. Let's give it a chance to recover. Aha, here we go. Because now I can blur this edge more, and I am not able to have a selective amount of blurring when I use the feather. Yeah, autosave is on. All right, so that would be the retouching stage so far. Well, no, not so far. There's the neck. I forgot the neck. Let's quickly take these two dots out. I don't know what that is. And let's work on that neck a bit, on those lines. I want to take them out and maybe bring them back. I see. Okay, sorry. This one. Sure. Thank you for, I forgot. I mostly keep it there for Capture One, but yes, you're right. Thank you. My pleasure. I want to have this a bit more smooth for a transition. And now I can introduce a mask and just brush it back a little bit. Yeah, like this. Okay. Right. I think next up would be some dodging and burning. And I want to see if we work with it like this. Let's see. Yeah, that's, I think, okay. As I said, I work with two curves. I don't like the soft light method. You're most welcome, Trong. Thank you for your feedback. Now I want to do some quick dodge and burning minutes to even out some of the most prominent areas. I have to check though if burning and dodging introduce or decrease the saturation, and therefore we will have a little check later. Please remind me if I should forget that, but this is one of the most important steps when dodging and burning, if it increases or decreases color. Because curves work not only on tones but also on color, and it should be even. I use the build-up method, let's call it like that, with low opacity and 100% flow. I got used to that a long time ago. Before that, I tried to use the 100% opacity and oops, see, there was a move. We have to fix those layers too. And I forgot what I wanted to say. It will come back. The good thing about working with the curves is that you have so much more control over the opacity, over the mask, instead of using a soft light layer with a gray color. It's definitely a way to go. I don't want to judge that, but for me it turned out to be much more valuable working with this. All right, I got you, Ivan. As I said, it's personal preference. There's also a third way, I think. Speaking of soft light, maybe we can try that. It is a way of picking two colors from the skin and then making use of those as dodge and burn colors and use the soft light. Because then, well, I just show you when I did some more of this. Let's see if we can fix that here. Sometimes it does make sense to use more than one curve set or soft light layer, to be fair. My goal now is to even out the tonal transitions to a degree where I think the shift from darks to midtones to lights is pretty smooth. And when it is, it's a good way to, or a good idea to zoom back and, to see what you did so far. And then to consider taking the opacity down from the curves or the soft light layer or the group, wherever you store your dodge and burn layers. Also, it can be a good idea to actually burn more than dodge more, because there is a tendency, I don't know if you can relate, to dodge too much rather than just take down the brightness, and it can lead to nicer results in the end. Can, doesn't have to. Okay. Let's fix the lip area. The chin. Because there are a few things that I want to show you grading wise. Let's not get lost in detail. I know I say that a lot, but then there's the next area that can be fixed, and yeah. What can I do? Let's even that neckline a bit more. Okay, let's darken that part a bit. Okay, there is a bit of discolorization. So usually when it comes to dodging, it can make sense to put a hue saturation layer and decrease the saturation a bit. And with the burn one, the exact opposite, just to increase it a bit. More even. Okay. DB. I wanted to show you the way with the two colors, right? Okay, so let's call this dodge, burn, set them to soft light. Now sample two colors, one for the highlight, let's find a good one. And then go a bit brighter on this. And one for shadow. I don't do that too often, but it can work. Let's see. Like this one. It's dark enough. Okay. So I'm gonna switch to the dodge and have the same approach now. Just let's see what it does. Can lighten that area here. And it also works on the color. Fixes some of the saturation issues. And of course, if it's too much, we can decrease the opacity of the layer. There are some dark patches in the skin here, and it can help to even this out. That was too much. Let's find the burn one as well. Let's see. Oh, something's laggy. Dim the highlight a bit. And lighten this part so we have a more smooth transition. Let's see what these two layers are doing. Okay. I will decrease the opacity now, and I will bring it in again to see I think 70% is still enough and looks natural. Okay, let's save this. And I think there's two things we can do now to work on that saturation a bit. What we could do is create color correction folder, and I like to work with a tool that Stefan Kohler, a friend of mine, he brought it to life a couple of years ago, and now they reworked it and they released it just lately. It's called Infinite Unify. I don't know if you know this tool. If you don't, it creates a gradient map based on the tones that you pick with the selection or based on the image. And with the new tool, you have got a lot of control to create a gradient map to then use for skin correction. And I just want to show you, you can make a selection of the skin tones you like. For example, I like this area here. It has nice tones and some dark and light spots, and maybe also this one here. So this selection would be enough to, let's go for it. We set it to dark for darker skin and click create. So it actually makes a selection and it has this gradient map here now. See? And it's kind of hard to do these by hand, but if you know how to do it, sure, you can do that. And it gives you it's a quicker way to balance out skin tones. So if I would take off the mask, you could see that it would balance, for example, those tones here nicely. You don't have to use it with 60%, but now you have the control to brush it in with a certain amount of opacity. And the other thing that you can do is, you see these colors here, and these are the ones that it picked to be in the gradient. And there are some that are a little off. So like this red one, you can just click it and it takes it out. This greenish one here, this one. And you can then have it more even and smooth. And you can simply use that to take out saturation and color shifts. It's with 60% right now, I see that. I would take it down to maybe, I don't know, 30-ish something. And it helps to deal with these inconsistencies in color and also... And I can be a bit more loose here because I have the mask for the makeup. And we can also introduce a bit more color here. And on the lower part, we can just give it a big brush with 30%. It's very subtle. And it took out a lot of the distractions that I wanted to get rid of. Of course, you can be very detailed and go in with the curve, and you can do many things, but sometimes it helps to have the one or the other tool at hand to help you be a bit faster or automate it, and it doesn't... In the end, it's just important that we find a result that simulates the... not simulates, that gives us the pleasing result that we want. Retouch for me plugins. Well, I know his name is Pavel. No, not Pavel. Sorry, it was you, Pavel. What's his name? Oleg. Oleg. He also has created the 3D LUT creator, which I like a lot. And I've tried the Dodge and Burn one, but it has been a couple of years ago actually, and I thought that it wasn't yet as good as I would want it. Do you know if they had an update or something on that? Because I'm always curious on finding new tools and toys. I don't know if you guys stepped into Midjourney yet. I think it's amazing what you can do with that, and it's fascinating what it gives you as possibilities to be creative and to be finding new ways that haven't been there before, and therefore it's amazing to just see what possibilities there are. I don't know if you saw Pratik's Futurist AI Instagram page, or if you saw the beta, which is just mind-blowing. I don't know, I can spend hours on that, trying new things. Okay, that's the color correction part. And I'll check that out, Pavel. Thank you. Okay, so now we got that. I want to go into some grading. And but there's one more thing. This dark patch here. I want to get rid of that. Let's create... actually, let's work with the Dodge and Burn layer that we created here with the color. It's not going away. Take this one then. Okay. Right. I want to show you a way to play with luminosity. I think so too. This kind of retouching here is it's more manual, and you need to be in control. And I don't... Well, as long as the tools are not like doing exactly what I would love them to do, maybe they can learn. I would never say no. because then you can concentrate more on the creative work, and it would be okay. Okay, let's set a luminosity folder. I want to create a hue saturation layer, put it to soft light, take down the opacity to -90. I don't want to introduce too much color. And what I do now is I create a curve and I clip it to the hue saturation. Because it's too dark now, obviously. But what I want to do is I want to lift that curve up and this down and give it a little S. What it does now is it introduces some contrast, but I can control where it applies and where not. I found this way of creating contrast to an image when I first worked with Olaf Blecker from Berlin. He's an amazing photographer as well, and he has got that very specific look to his images, and when I asked him about the contrast method he likes to use, that was the base of it, and this is amazing. You have so much control, or I like it like this, but now I want to bring back some of the light below to even out the fall off of the light in the image, okay? And therefore I would go below the luminosity folder and create a stamp. I have an action for that, but it doesn't work. No, I have to be on that. It should work now. And but you can also just use a shortcut like Command Alt Shift E. It does the same. Okay, I will put it in here. I will call it shadow highlight because that's what I want to do. I will turn this into a smart object. You can do that by holding Control and say, where is it? Convert to smart object. And now I want to use the shadow highlights adjustment. I can use the standard settings or take a little less, maybe 30. We can take down the color effects a bit, or maybe we leave them as with 10, 15, like so. And then I will mask it away, and then I will have a brush with 30%, and I want to bring in some of the light by preserving the texture. Let's go with a little less. Bring in some light here. Some light here. Let's see if it works. And also here. I want to find a little bit more symmetry. And also in the hair, it's a bit too dark. Because if it goes to print, it would be nice to have the detail here. And also there, it's a bit too darkish. It's too much here. Okay. Not 100% sure. Let's see. I think I want to redo that. I want to concentrate on the most prominent parts. So I want to light here, here, and on the nose, and slightly here. Just a touch, and on the lips. And on the hair. That's it. Okay. Now I want to put in some grade, and therefore this is optional, of course, and let's call it grade. And I will start, and grading is, maybe I should point that out before. Grading is a very enjoyable process, I think, and it shouldn't be too stressful. And it's an approach that is okay to play with. And I like to build grades up. Sometimes I take things out again, and especially when finding a grade for a master image. This would be a master image for a series. And what I would do is to create the grade and, as I said, build it up ever so slightly, maybe do some variations, and then I would send it to Ava, and we would bounce thoughts on that, bounce ideas, maybe change this and that. But it doesn't have to be like 100%, and there's no problem when it takes a little while. And sometimes I get asked how to find the perfect grade. It's by playing. That's at least my idea. And I would suggest that everyone is just mindful about it. Doesn't have to be 100% in the first place. So what can we do? We can use the selective color, for example, and start with the skin color tones, red and yellow, and to balance out the color a bit more, what we can do is in the reds introduce some yellow, and let's see where the effect starts to happen, and maybe take out a little bit of magenta, not much, because then it turns to the cyan side or to the greenish side pretty fast, and counter that with the yellows and put in more magenta, and you will see what it does, and balance this out. But you can see that it gets a little more yellowish, and it's not too pale reddish anymore. I think it gives it a nice glow, and if we go to the neutrals, these are much more taking the effect. So if we move this around, you will see that the grade starts building up very fast. I just want to push a little bit of cyan in. I want to take out a bit of magenta to give it that greenish tint that we were talking in the beginning, okay? And the same goes for some yellow. So I want to have that little shift. It's very subtle right now, but I want to play with those two colors, with the greenish and the pinkish, and I want to have them to jump off the image a bit. Let's see. The next thing is that I like to play with gradient maps also when it comes to grading, and therefore you can just simply create a new adjustment layer gradient map and click here, and then you can pick some of the ones that are already here. And it's nice to have some color harmonies that you can introduce. Even it could be a second harmony that also that complements the first one, and or it can be something completely different that just gives it a little touch of color. And I want to try this one. Of course, it looks really weird now, but if you put that to soft light, for example, and you take down the opacity and you just bring it in ever so slightly, it kind of gets in the mood where I wanted to go in the beginning. And you can see what it does. It's a bit dark now, but we can complement that with a curve and just lighten the darks a bit. And that could be one way to get there. And as I said, this is completely up to you and personal preference, if you want to apply it as much, or if this is maybe too much. I, for now, think that's one possibility to go. And now we need, maybe we can reduce the opacity a bit. Let's see what it does. Yes. And what we could do now is, or what we have to do now is to actually do some sharpening and some finish, which I like to do with grain. Let's see if it's sharp enough. What we didn't do is to bring some light in the eye. We could, and also take it off the grade, maybe, or just a bit. Let's see. I want to see the effect. I almost forgot the eyes. I want to make a quick edit on the eyes. Draw a quick mask with the pen tool and check the mask. It's too sharp. We can use the blur tool to soften it quickly. Okay. And now what I like to do is use a curve. Check if we can light it a little bit, not too much. It shouldn't look fake. That's almost too much. We can take that down here in the corner. Not as much, 30% black. Take it off here. And also use a hue saturation. Take the eyedropper and take down the saturation a bit. Mask it out, mask it back in as much as you like. See if it's too much. I think it's okay, maybe 80%. Yes, okay. So now last piece of the puzzle is the finish. And now let's give it a little sharpening. And now I want to create a stamp again. Turn it into a smart object. And wait for it to progress. Okay. And use Smart Sharpen. Find it works pretty nice. It's not too much, and we can still increase it if we like, but I just want to give it a little sharpen. It's thinking. Okay. I clicked it by accident. Just a little sharpening. And now the last piece is the grain. I use my patterns for that. If you are not familiar with that, there is a video on my channel where you see how I created them. These are the Capture One grains, and let's zoom to 100%. Oh, it doesn't? Wait. Okay. These are the different Capture One grains. I want to use it's the Silver Rich. And I want to put it in with a soft light blend mode, but not with a 100%, that's too much. I think we are good with 50-ish. And if this should be too small of a grain, you can always, that's the beauty of a pattern, go in and scale it. 125, for example, or 150, or whatever in between, what you like. And then you have it applied to the whole image. You can take it out where you don't want it. And also you can, if you would rescale the image, or if you would work in a different format, this will adapt with it, and it's very flexible. So this is why I use that. All right. Now we are done for this video, I think. Let's check the before and after. So we came from Capture One with this. And we ended with, sorry, it's a bit laggy. We ended with this. So we did the retouch part. We did the dodge and burn part where the skin is smoothed out and the transitions are more nice. We have the color correction part, which was pretty subtle, but it is the unify of with a gradient map. Of course, there is tons of ways how to do that without a plugin, but sometimes it saves you time, and it's a great way to go. You can go very selectively with curves or selective color or many tools, but in this case I think it made sense to make use of that. And this is the luminosity punch with the way that I showed you, and some small adjustments to the eye. We have the grade and the finish. And yeah, I hope you like the result of this, and I think that's one way to work with Capture One, and then continue in Photoshop, make use of all the adjustments and on layers in Capture One, and then have a lot of control in Photoshop on this kind of image. And let me switch back so that we can see each other. And I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you took something away from this video. I would highly appreciate if you leave me your comments in the box below, if you got any questions, if you have suggestions, or if you are up for any other kind of video. If you would leave a like, that would of course be most appreciated, so that the algorithm sees that the video is appreciated. And other than that, do you have got any questions that I can still answer for you? And while you are maybe typing, let me tell you that there will be some more videos coming in the next weeks, because there are some plans of new follow-up videos on this one and on a couple more. And I'm happy to be back, and I hope you... Let's see, is there some questions coming? If not, that's great. I guess you took something away then, and I'm checking my screens here to know what you're typing. And yeah, so if no more questions coming up, I think we will call it a Sunday. And you, wherever you are, you start into your day, have a good breakfast. You have a lunch, you have a dinner, and I will prepare some for my family soon. And yeah, it was my pleasure to share this with you. Thank you to Ava again for this amazing image to work on, and wishing you a wonderful day. And until then, nothing but the best. Have a great day. See you soon. This was Jan. Bye.